220 years from the activation of the Act of Union. Article 6 of that Act of Union was a fundamental building block, a foundation of this union. And it was to the effect that across and within the entirety of the United Kingdom, there would be free and frictionless trade from which every citizen could benefit. Sadly, on this 1st of January, coming on Friday, Article 6 of the Act of Union will be trashed by the protocol, which creates friction in trade within the United Kingdom, which causes an Irish Sea border to aid that friction. And of course, which brings with it the odious imposition of laws which we never made, which we cannot change, and which will be supervised by a foreign court in a foreign jurisdiction. This is not the Brexit I voted for. It did not say on my ballot paper, do you want GB to leave the EU and leave Northern Ireland behind, abandoned in the EU's customs union, in a single market, in its VAT regime? No, it invited me to vote to leave as we joined, as one nation. One of my great sadnesses is that it is a DUP minister, though the Irish Sea border has been delivered by the betrayal of Brexit, that is building the infrastructure. And though the DUP in principle correctly today in Westminster will vote against this deal, in this House they've been voting to implement the protocol.
Good evening and welcome to another Restore Live. Restore right across the UK. We're broadcasting to this evening, and this evening we have a man who's no stranger to the screen. It's Councillor James Dalton, and we'll be bringing him in very, very shortly. So here we are, as I said, on Monday evening. We're in a place of no man's land, and most especially if you live in Northern Ireland. Not knowing who we belong to, not knowing whether we're part of the EU or we're part of the United Kingdom. We have our foot in both camps is the reality. And some people would say that that's a good thing. And we can hear the calls from Scotland, from the SNP, looking to be of the same sort of stature with a foot in both camps. And if I'm honest, looking at this deal, we are more aligned at present to the EU in Northern Ireland than we are to the rest of the United Kingdom. And if you listen to Jim Allister just there, what you will have heard Jim Allister saying was that, he didn't vote for what has been delivered. He voted and he made up part of the 17.4 plus million people that voted for Brexit. And he made up one of those numbers, as did I made up one of those numbers, and as did many people throughout Northern Ireland. We made up those numbers, but yet we are separated from the UK, and we didn't get the same deal as the rest of the United Kingdom. And I would like to just remind people. I'm going to pop up the ballot paper, that we placed our axe on the 23rd of June 2016. So just bear with me for a second. Okay, if you read through that ballot paper that's on the screen, referendum on the United Kingdom's membership of the United Kingdom, and it said vote only once by putting a cross, an X in the box next to your choice. So it asked one question and one question only, and it said that should the United Kingdom remain a member of the European Union or leave the European Union? Now, remain a member of the European Union, you could have put your X there, or leave the European Union. And, the leave the European Union box there, more people put their X in that box than they did in the other box, and that was to remain in the European Union. And that was a democratic election. And if we go back to what David Cameron had said and how that David Cameron had defined the Brexit process, he said that there was going to be one vote. There's not going to be a negotiation or a renegotiation. And if the people, if they decide to leave the EU, well, then we would be leaving, and we would be leaving. The Brexit referendum was extended right across the United Kingdom to the people of Northern Ireland also. And here we find ourselves in December of 2020, and just a few days away from Northern Ireland being separated and not having got the same Brexit as the rest of the United Kingdom. Now, I would go further and I would argue for the rights and wrongs of it, that, I see this as a Brexit in name only. And, for many reasons where the fishing, that hadn't been settled, and there's so many issues to be settled Also, I mean, there's not a full trade deal done, and there's so many areas which still has to be agreed. And that leaves for spin, swindle, and fudge and complete fudge of the nation. So there we have it. Northern Ireland, the people in Northern Ireland are not getting the same Brexit as the people right across the United Kingdom, in Scotland and Wales and in England. And, does that make the people of Northern Ireland second-class voters, second-class British citizens, second-class members of the United Kingdom? Well, it probably goes further than that. And as this stream goes on, what we'll do is that we will come to explain, and we'll do what we usually do. We'll come to show by way of video and by way of documentation that all is not as it seems. And that's not just for Northern Ireland, but that's right around the United Kingdom. I would just like to go to the live chat at this stage and, just go through some of the live chat here. And I'd like to say welcome to each and every one that has joined us this evening. And, I would ask you to keep commenting, keep sharing the broadcast, share the broadcast far and wide, and try to attract as many people to this broadcast as humanly possible. Because, today, in December 2020, like never before, we need each other. We need each other because, I like to say that when we can't rely on our politicians to fight for our survival in a meaningful, proactive way, how then can we survive? And whilst, you heard Jim Allister there talking about the DUP, and whilst the DUP were voting against a lot of these things today in the Houses of Parliament, back here in Northern Ireland, they're implementing the protocol. They're voting for it. And, just a few weeks ago, we had Arlene Foster, who was in a meeting on a Wednesday in Armagh with Michelle O'Neill and Simon Coveney. That was the Minister of Foreign Affairs for the Irish Republic. And what they were doing is they were arranging to have the mechanisms put in place on the 1st of January next year, which is Friday. They were arranging to have the mechanisms put in place whereby that the protocol, the Northern Ireland Protocol, could be implemented. Now, I demand more of my politicians, and I'm sure that you people also demand more of your politicians. What do we elect politicians for? We elect politicians to serve and to protect us. And, never before in our history, the history of the United Kingdom, you heard Jim Allister there talking about the Act of the Union, the Article 6 of the Act of the Union, which provided for people right across the United Kingdom to have tariff-free trade and to have access in terms of goods from and to any constituent part of the United Kingdom. But these politicians are not fighting for your survival. These politicians are not defending, protecting, and enhancing the United Kingdom like politicians should do, which begs the question, why? Why, oh why are they doing this? For me, and as we'll probably show throughout this broadcast, I believe that there's other things at play. And, if you think that you got Brexit, if you live in England, you live in Scotland, you live in Wales, and if you're, glorifying in this wonderful day that that you've left the EU, well, I say, think again, and we will actually prove this on this stream. So let's keep the stream sort of positive, even though that we're not leaving in Northern Ireland, the EU, and even though that the people of England, Scotland, and Wales have got some sort of Brexit, albeit that temporarily, I will say, and remember those words. Even though that they're getting some sort of Brexit, there's nothing to be celebrated there, is the truth of the matter. But I'll tell you what is to be, kept in mind is that together we have a big task in 2021. Together, the fight's not over. The battle's at the gate right now, and we know that our government, those that are meant to serve and protect us, they have effectively opened the gate. And they have allowed the battle to go beyond the gate. And especially in Northern Ireland, we've got to sort of sit down with people here and now. And as I said on Monday, there are things that we can do, and there are strategies that we need to work on and that we need to implement. And, and that would include reaching out to like-minded people in the Irish Republic, because there are many like-minded people in the Irish Republic who detest the EU, who detest the dictatorial ways of the EU, who absolutely want out of the EU, and who would be happy and I mean absolutely happy, to come in and join with the British Isles once again and be part of the British Isles. So there's a huge task for us, is to reach out to those people, to work together and to work in order to ensure that together we are strong, together we are safe, and together our numbers will grow. And then there's the people in England and the people in Scotland and the people in Wales who are also our friends. And, we need to work hard, work tirelessly with them, helping them expose the corruption within Westminster. I'd just like to play a little video at this point to really point out what is going on in Westminster, and to help people understand that all is not as it seems. What you're seeing in the optics, there's a lot going on in the background which people are not actually seeing to the naked eye, and certainly the mainstream media are not telling you about the things that are actually going on. So I'd like to just play this little video, and after this video, what I will be doing is that I'll go back to the live chat again. I'll pop up a few of the chats, and then we'll bring Councillor James Dalton in, and we'll get on with what it is that we're here to do. So just to play this little video, and I ask you to listen to these words. And here we have a man in the Houses of Parliament in Westminster who had an attack of conscience, and somebody who is absolutely, he detests what's going on. Just listen to his words and make your own judgment on what this man has to say.
Sir Charles Walker.
Madam Deputy Speaker, our freedoms are like the air we breathe. They're fundamental to us as a nation and to who we are as its people. We are not asking our constituents to do anything we have never asked. We have coerced them. We have criminalised freedom of association, the freedom to go about one's business, the freedom to travel, and the freedom to protest. The freedom to protest. That is the oxygen of democracy. Our fundamental rights are our contract with government. I am living in fear of something much darker hiding in the shadows. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, when the sunlight returns, and it will return, I hope it chases those shadows away. But I can't be sure that it will. I cannot be sure. And that is at the heart of my anxiety, and the anxiety of so many of the people I represent in this place.
On the screen. So here's one from Samuel Torrance, and he says that the Tories, etc., say that we can change things every 4 years via our assembly. What a load of crap. And, I'm not going to sort of refrain from using that language, because that is the reality. The assembly is infested with Remainers, both Remainers and traitors. So, yeah, I agree. And if anybody on the chat agrees with Samuel, please leave the messages, and I'll encourage people to keep the chat going and to keep the chat between us. And we'll continue to bring up some of these questions, basically, or some of these, these live chat. And what we'll show what people actually think of what's happening right now. Now, here's one also from Anto Wickham, and good to see you back, Anto. And Merry Christmas, what's left of it, and a Happy New Year. So the DUP, as always, are playing games. They have more faces than the Albert clock. Let's not mince the words. And next time you walk past the Albert clock, look up and check the time, as all four faces tell a different time, just as the DUP do. Well, look, we've seen that from the DUP. What they say, what comes from their mouths for the optics on the television and on our radio, and what they're saying on social media, doesn't actually represent what it is that they're doing in private, and that's just the way that it is. So looking back through some of this live chat again, and here's another one as we go. Sorry about this here. We're just scrolling through the live chat. I voted to leave. Right, okay. We voted to leave as a nation. Here's one also from Jonathan Beattie. We voted to leave as a nation. We have been misled and sold out by Westminster and our so-called leaders. Well, look, isn't that a fact, Jonathan? You're absolutely right. And, What do we say? But look, it's not over, and it isn't over, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart, that it isn't over. And whilst we can't rely on our politicians to fight for our survival, well, you see, what we can do is that we can come together and we can fight for that survival, and we can team together with others. Look, let me just put it like this: you see, our enemies being the left, the globalists, these left far woke nut jobs, as I like to call them. This conglomerate have joined with Republicans, who have joined with the Labour Party, the Lib Dems, the Scottish Nationals Party, and all of those people. Do you know what they do? You see, they team together with people right around the world, and they team together in order to derail our successes. So isn't it time that we team together and we began to derail their successes? Because there are people in countries right around the world. There are people in America right now. I mean, America is more than split right down the middle, and I would say that there's a lot of people on our side in America, and traditionally that wouldn't have been the case. So we need to begin a process of reaching out to those people, reaching out to people in Ireland, reaching out to people here in Northern Ireland, in the nationalist community, who want to live a life of prosperity and of peace, and who don't like the EU also. And there's so many reasons why these people would stand together with us in order to fight this corruption, in order to fight this. Who voted for globalization? I didn't, and I don't think that anybody did. In fact, we voted to leave the EU because we wanted to turn back the tide of globalization. And, this is what we've got. We've got our own politicians who are prepared to, excuse this expression, but it's the truth, who are prepared to sell us out, to get their own feet under the globalist table, and that is an absolute fact. So at this point, I would just like to bring James in. And James, if you'd just like to introduce yourself, and maybe you give some comment on what you've just heard there, James, and we'll move on with the show. So I'd like for everyone to welcome Councillor James Dalton.
Evening, John. Thanks for the invite and the warm welcome, and Merry Christmas. I hope you've been enjoying the festivities. It's quite an exciting time. The war of attrition goes on. It continues, doesn't it? Having got involved in the Brexit campaign, the campaign to leave the EU. Even the language has got to me. The Brexit campaign. It wasn't a Brexit campaign. It was a campaign for the United Kingdom to leave the European Union. And one of the first images you showed was the voting ballot paper, and what we voted for, whether we lived in Holmfirth like I do, or whether we lived in Belfast or Cardiff or Kent or the Orkneys, we voted whether the United Kingdom should leave the European Union. And Scotland didn't vote in that election. Edinburgh didn't vote. London didn't vote. Northern Ireland. The United Kingdom voted as one nation, because that's what we are. That's how we fought the Second World War. The Second World War and the institutions that came forth from the Second World War and the manifestations of those institutions are what we see today. With the and what we're in is a war of attrition. Today we had a vote in the House of Commons, which was no doubt a meaningful vote in the eyes of those in the House of Commons and their echo chamber. But did they do what they were instructed to do 4.5 years ago? Do we really know? The whole democratic process is broken, and I think people can see that. I should be elated if Brexit is now coming forth as a long-time campaign, somebody who's given the best part of 6-7 years of their life towards getting the United Kingdom out of the EU. I don't feel that excitement and that joy, which should be coming if we were leaving the EU. And herein lies the problem. We as a nation have watched parliamentarians today in Parliament discuss a document that is 1,287 pages long, or whatever. The reality is none of those MPs even discussed or knew what was in the document that they were discussing. And the reality of the detail will come out in the wash as the days and months go by. But for us to be in a position after 4.5 years where an agreement is being voted through that has had no scrutiny, that people haven't had the MPs haven't had the chance to scrutinise it, they haven't had the chance to get feedback from their constituents, and that was obviously by design. It's by design. Democracy's broken. They're not interested in what we think. We want to get out of the EU. We told them. They want us in the EU, and this is just the next stage in the war of attrition. Am I downhearted? I guess each step forward is a positive step. But as we've taken this step forward, the wedges of tomorrow, the cracks of tomorrow have already been deliberately opened up, and the political wedges for the EU have already been created. And it's absolutely shameful for the Conservative and Unionist Party to be, I mean, it's just such a betrayal to the Union. The clip that you showed of Jim Allister, traditional Unionist voice, and what we were hearing there was the voice of the traditional Unionist, which it's a shame that traditional Unionist, i.e. someone who believes in the Union, it is not a more natural place for people in our nation to be. And he expressed the viewpoint, and I can see how people in Northern Ireland will be feeling absolutely devastated and betrayed, because they're the pawn. They're the pawn that are going to be used in tomorrow's game of drag us back into the EU. Because lest we forget, we have a Conservative Party that's pro-EU. We've got a Labour Party that's pro-EU. We've got, I should say, when I say the party, I don't mean the voters. The voters are a lot more eclectic and mixed than the labels. I'm talking about the machines. The Conservative Party machine is pro-EU. The Whitehall machinery is pro-EU. The Foreign Office it's pro-EU. Now, it's pro-EU because fundamentally that isn't really the game that's being played. And you've alluded to this. This is a matter of nationhood. We are a united kingdom. There are different views throughout the world as to what the United Kingdom's place in the future world should be. And what we're talking about, you've alluded to it, is globalism. The globalist, Mr. Global, whoever that is. But their agenda, they've got a different agenda and a different future for the United Kingdom. And that is the United Kingdom not being a nation, but being a region within a different legal framework. Ultimately, a one world legal framework. The EU is just a mechanism to break the cultural and legal differences of the countries of Europe. And obviously the United Kingdom has been a target in that mission. Now, we've obviously, 2016 was a real shock to globalism and globalists, because despite the control that they perceived that they had, the result didn't go their way. And there weren't many people who expected the Leave vote. Maybe I was one. Maybe that was just optimism and just part of my drive. But ultimately, whether you were surprised or not, the bookies were. Leave won, and that was, I think, a lot more significant than most people understand. Not just in this country, in the United Kingdom, but globally. And I don't mean just in Europe either. What was being demonstrated from, and with due respect to Ireland, Holland, and other countries who'd had referendums on this issue, they still came from their culture of being from a top-down political culture, and it's in the blood. Freedom is something that's known through generations, and when the EU and the Dutch parliaments ignored told the voters that they voted the wrong way, actually, and they should, just give that one a miss. Same with the Irish. The Irish got to vote a couple of times before they actually got it right. But that wasn't ever really on the cards with the culture of the British, our common law, our traditional rights that have actually been chipped away out without most people noticing. But when the jar came of the result on the morning of the 24th of June, that the people had voted to leave the EU, well, obviously the machinery went into overdrive right that very morning on the BBC. Already when are we going to have the next vote? So the next campaign vehicles for the EU were already on the shelf on the BBC. The talking heads were already there, all to roll out the next phase of oops, something went really wrong. Now they weren't expecting it, but they had if things go wrong, what are we going to do cards. Now, our vote, and let's just backtrack go back a little bit, because the referendum was preceded by a general election, which the Conservatives won on the back of promising a referendum. There was a vote in the House of Commons which was won by 6-1, deciding, using our democratic processes through Parliament, deciding that the decision would be put to the people through a referendum. That was a decision made through our Parliament, an act of Parliament. The referendum then came about and we voted. Now, 5 months after we voted, the second shock to the globe, Mr. Global, came along. And it came along in the form of Donald Trump. And anybody who voted to get out of the EU, whichever part of the United Kingdom you're from, you will have noticed, especially if you got involved in the campaigns, you will have noticed a very aggressive and negative and confrontational approach to you as an individual and your motives. Different people got involved in getting out of the EU for all sorts of different reasons. For some people, it was smoking bans. Some people it was to do with regulations. I know somebody who's got involved because of regulations to do with tampering with what they can and can't do with motorcycles. I didn't pretend to understand the issue in detail, but I understood what he was saying, that there was this remote body that he couldn't vote for that was literally telling him what parts he could and couldn't put on his motorcycle. My involvement, I guess, really came from a similar place to Tony Benn. It was very much to do with democratic accountability and what government actually is there to do, and what politicians or who politicians are there to serve and who actually is the boss. And that essentially was always the discomfort between people in the United Kingdom and the EU. People in the United Kingdom have a history of being the boss, of not really letting the top man, the top dog, get away with whatever he wants. And this dates back, obviously, to pre Magna Carta times. Funnily enough, yesterday was the 850th anniversary of Thomas Beckett's murder, and there was a case of a chap who didn't want the king choosing who the bishops were, and obviously the story's a lot broader than that. But ultimately, the king wasn't happy, and he went and killed Thomas Becket in his church. State saying I am supreme, and somebody, in this case St. Thomas Becket, standing up and saying, no, 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 no. Men are never supreme over the individual God-given rights of man. And it's this disconnect between natural law and man's law. Now, globalism obviously is a political future, that has been determined. So it has been determined that our future will follow a certain path. And this is globalism. It's the United Nations. It's the Great Reset. It's the change of our economic system. It's all the things that you're kind of hearing about in roundabout terms. You kind of hearing the things about, we need to stop burning oil and we need to go to different forms of energy production. And this is something that we need to tackle on a global basis. We've got food production, and can we continue eating meat? We've got population control. We've got healthcare, and all these problems that we're told exist are being taken on board and being the solutions to those problems. Whether or not those problems exist is another thing, but the solutions to those problems need the centralized, singular approach of a one world government. Now, independent nations don't quite fit in with that kind of move going forward. Like the child in the class who is always asking why of the teacher, and the teacher gets a little bit fed up and wants the child to shut up, but the child's curious and just wants to know why. Similarly, we're seeing this now, this almost I know better than you approach becoming more demanding. No, we do know better. We're experts. You little people don't know better. So bringing it back into where we are today, we little people who didn't know better, we thought we had what we called a democracy, where whilst we all do disagree on things, ultimately, when it comes to settling these things, we go out, we cast our vote, and if we're casting our vote for the local MP, then the lady or the gent who gets the most votes, it becomes the MP for everybody. And that's how we agree. Nobody suggests that if my local MP got voted in on fewer than 50% of the vote, but we accept he's the MP for all of us for the given period of time. The business about not following the globalist agenda, however, that's something that has jolted the powers that be. Now, they managed to fob the Dutch off with the EU game. They managed to fob the Irish off, but they never were going to fob the British off because of our history of common law.
Just like to come in at that point, so I would just like to sort of point out what Tony King has said on the screen, and I would like to take us to another video because I know that you know a bit about it. So Tony King says, I suspect all the major unionist parties are now all endorsing the globalist agenda. I think it is much bigger than just Brexit, and we could very well be seeing the manoeuvring in order to facilitate a new world order.
What I'm saying is that they are not unionist parties. Yeah. They are globalist parties, and therefore they are not unionist parties, because ultimately it's the union to them is in history. Whereas if you're a unionist party, you see the United Kingdom as being the entity by which prosperity is brought about. And you see the future of a world where the United Kingdom cooperates and trades freely with other free nations It's a similar concept. The channels of history were diverging in the early 1900s, and the communists and the fascists sprung out of a similar totalitarian central control system. And the communists, they took charge of everything. There was no competitiveness within the system. And whenever you smash competitiveness, ultimately you bring forth poverty. And so whilst the evils of totalitarian manifested themselves in two forms, the fascist Nazis and the communists, both being totalitarian, expansionist totalitarian ideologies, the fascists did a little bit better, because instead of taking ownership of all, for instance, the military, let's take a military aircraft, instead of saying, right, well, we're going to have the, like in Russia, we've got the communist, right, we've got one aircraft manufacturer for the motherland, and build us the best fighter. So they came up with the best fighter. Whereas the Germans, they were a bit more cute. They allowed private capital to nominally take control, even though they were in control, because they were ultimately the bosses. But they went to four companies and said, make us your best fighter and you'll get the deal if yours is better than the other guys. And hence you got Messerschmitt, Henkel, and Fokker, if I can say that without getting your feed.
Back to that just a second. What it is,
the point being,
we've only so much time to get over these videos, you see. So we'll get back to onto this. Back to what Tony had been saying there about endorsing the globalist agenda, and we believe that's what's happening with our politicians right now. So look, I would like to just play this video, and then what I'll do is I'll bring you in at the very end of the video, and we'll ask you some questions on this, and we'll go back to your live chat. So I would like for everyone just to watch something here, and this is a video on the EU global plan, the EU urban global plan. So just over to the video here for a second, and we'll take a watch.
Welcome to the European Commission's press conference. Here we have with us Ms. Corina Cretu, Commissioner for Regional and Urban Policy of the European Union.
I'd like to explain to you why for European Union this new European global agenda is so important. You know very well that governments took important commitments on the Sustainable Development Agenda last year. Every day they take important decisions at national level, but for everything to make sense, two things are needed. First of all, implementation and ownership. And this is very important, the discussions in Quito, because without the involvement, participation, the commitment of local and regional authorities, nothing will happen. We have adopted at our European Union level last summer the European Union urban agenda, and I'm very happy that now the global urban agenda is becoming a reality. So it's very important to engage local authorities in the delivery of sustainable development strategy, and of course translate our objectives of that strategy into measures that reflects the concerns and needs of the local level.
Okay, so I mean, what that video is talking about there is the European urban agenda, and that lady had just sort of stated there, and that video was from 2016. and she had just stated that they were moving to a global urban agenda. And if you're a councillor, James, which you are, and this is to the people on our live chat, you see, your politicians, for the like of me, I don't know why even some of these politicians, some of these councillors, some of these MLAs even realise what's going on here. But what they're doing is they're implementing globalism. They're incrementally introducing globalism into the fray within our politics. And, whenever you look at Northern Ireland and how that it was that we were separated, they had a huge problem in Northern Ireland. And I'm not saying what they've done is right, because it is totally undemocratic. We voted and we were part of the 17.4 plus million people who made up the Brexit numbers. And yet we're being separated. But the problem for them would have been is that, you see, this urban agenda, for example, that's just one case. It's been implemented in our assembly right now. New decade, New Deal approach. Edwin Poots is implementing some of this right now. The councillors in Belfast City Council and other councillors are implementing some of this right now. So there was their problem. The problem is that we had the nationalists and Republicans and the conglomerate of, the so-called Liberals, being the Alliance Party here in Northern Ireland and whatnot, where they are sort of saying, well, we don't want to be leaving the EU, even though they left the vote. And they had a huge problem, is because, you see, your politicians, Westminster, Boris Johnson, and even the DUP leadership for this end, they are all signed up to this. They're all implementing this, as you well know, James. And really what we need to do is that we need to sort of dig through this here and understand. And we'll keep bringing videos like this, just explaining that no matter what you're seeing, and this is my message to the people in England, to the people in Scotland, to the people in Wales, you may think that Northern Ireland are the only people that are being separated from the United Kingdom right now. But the reality is that whilst they're telling you that you have Brexit, they're moving on down another track, and you're getting globalization, and it'll soon be on top of you before you know it. So will Brexit have all been in vain? Well, I would say that it will have, if we continue to elect the leaders that we currently have in place today. James, over to you. You've seen that video there. I know that you know a wee bit about it. So if you keep it sort of tight, that people understands it, and just go over to you. Tell us what you know about that, what we just played there.
Yeah, I'm aware that a lot of these different strands of things that are going on at the moment don't necessarily seem related. The urban plan, the United Nations, this is where it's all interlinked, and where, if I may just refer back, you've got a unionist party is basically a party that believes in the nation state, which is, funnily enough, the nationalists used to believe in a nation state also. And the monopoly in politics is owned by globalists. They may pretend to be unionists, but they're not the globalists, and they're pushing a globalist agenda. They're tied up. And one of the things that you've highlighted there is the urban, I can't remember what label, sustainability plan. They have all the same labels that they tag onto these things. But what you see there, and whilst everybody's talking about Brexit, everybody's been talking about that for the last 4.5 years, as a council, when you actually see what's continuing within our public sector at the moment, continuing within Whitehall, within our councils, is the plan that was already being implemented before we even voted to get out of the EU. Nothing has actually changed. So planning, you're discussing the implementation through Stormont of this urban sustainability agenda. What we are now seeing in local authorities in England is basically representatives such as myself being cut out. First they cut out the voter, and now they're looking at cutting out the representatives. They started off about 6 years ago with what called local plans. The idea being you put a document into the system, you give it legal authority, and then it's there. And basically the document is we're going to build here, there, and everywhere, whatever their plan is for the future that they've predetermined. It's then gone to a second stage, which is to get theoretical neighbourhood approval. So there's a whole series of neighbourhood plans being drawn up all over the country. They're not very well advertised. Unless you're actually on the ball with what's going on, you don't see it. And they'll all go through some form of pseudo-democratic process where they will have been adopted. Then what you'll have is a 25-year plan in place, lodged with your local authorities, with your local common purpose, already infiltrated with globalist actors. And what they will say to you in 5 years or 10 years, you've still got a chance to stop this if you get involved now. But what they'll say in 5 and 10 years if you get elected, and you'll go along and say, I've been elected by my locale. We don't want that big housing estate or that big set of flats, or we don't want that big, whatever it might be, that change of land use, whatever it might be. And they will turn around and say, oh, it's in the plan. The people have approved it. It's been agreed. Oh, hang on a minute. We changed our minds. Oh, no, you can't change your minds. They're putting all these obstacles to accountability in place now. They've been ramming them through over the last 6 years in local authorities through imposed policies that come from above. So you're on a council. All of a sudden, you're in a council meeting and you're being told, oh, by the way, this is your new, whatever it might be, diversity and equality policy, employment policy. Oh, do I get a say in drafting up that policy? Oh, no, you don't. It's there. It's already come from somewhere, from the ether, from the globalist system, which is paid for by us, which exists within our politics. So the problems are quite deep-seated, but they are tackleable if people get elected. What is needed is a replacement of the fake political parties, which are continuing with this globalist agenda, and it's quite fascinating to witness from the inside, because 95% of people are completely unaware of what is really going on, and sadly trust that politicians are actually promoting what they voted for, i.e. Brexit. That's not what's actually happening, whatever the media is telling you through your television screens.
Yeah. I like to call it a tell-lie vision, and I'm sure that other people see it in exactly the same way. And I have to say, I've taken lately, other than if I'm researching, to turn the thing off, because it's depressing. And, it's not as if you're getting information that is relevant. All you're getting is propaganda and people's agenda. You're getting spin, swindle, and fudge. And, the other evening, James, I'd noticed there's a Katia Adler, they called her, and that was before that Boris Johnson seemingly and co had done a deal with the European Union, and a smile on her face. We hadn't seen a smile like that from before June the 23rd of 2016. So, that told me a deal in itself, that, things that she was being told that things are afoot. And as we see, it's probably another one of the great swindles of our lifetime here, that what we're seeing taking place right in front of our very eyes. So to the people in England, to the people in Scotland, to the people in Wales who think that they've got Brexit, I would say that what you need to do is you need to really take those letters and rearrange them a bit and spell out for yourself BRINO, which spells Brexit in name only, because that's what you've got. You've got the illusion of Brexit. Brexit was promised. And what was Brexit for me? Let me explain from an individual standpoint. It was about really taking back control of your laws, taking back control of your country, and having the say to rules and regulations. And look, we're not saying that we would go back to the Stone Age and that we would do things in a bad way and we wouldn't be protecting people's rights. But certainly what I wanted to do was I wanted to be able to stop a foreign power from dictating things that were detrimental to the greatest union that the world has ever seen, in my honest belief. And that union is the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And here we have a supposed unionist, a conservative. They're conservative nothing, and they're conserving nothing. And we're talking about Boris Johnson, Michael Gove, and the little conglomerate that's with those people. Here we have those people presiding presiding over the breakup of the United Kingdom. And believe me, people, this is what we will have in the next few days. I'd just like to play another video there just to remind people. And I like to play this video because this video is by a man called Ben Habib. And just listen to what Ben had to say. We'll come back, we'll look at some of the live chat, and then we'll move on to something else. So just bear with me.
16th of September this year, the Prime Minister told us that he'd had one hand tied behind his back when he negotiated the Northern Irish Protocol, and that he was going to bring a new internal market bill that would undo the offensive aspects of that protocol. He said that the internal market bill would get rid of the Irish sea border, and it would get rid of the application of EU state aid law in Northern Ireland. Up until 2 weeks ago, that remained a crucial thing for the Prime Minister to deliver. And then last week, Michael Gove got up in the House of Commons and he said he'd reached an agreement with his counterpart in the EU that prevented the creeping of EU state aid law from Northern Ireland into Great Britain. And he managed to get rid of the need for declarations on goods travelling from Northern Ireland to Great Britain. But actually what he did was confirm that EU state aid law would apply in Northern Ireland. He confirmed that there would be declarations required on goods going from Great Britain to Northern Ireland. Moreover, he confirmed that there will be an office in Northern Ireland for EU officials to judge whether we've complied with our obligations under the protocol. The Prime Minister has completely collapsed on Northern Ireland. This is the beginning of the end of the Union of the United Kingdom. Make no mistake, that is precisely what is happening here. And Sturgeon will be very emboldened by these steps. When she gets a victory next year, she probably will in the Scottish elections, she will point to Northern Ireland as an example of steps taken to become independent. Unless the Prime Minister wakes up very quickly, he will find that he has presided over the breakup of the Union of the United Kingdom that has existed since 1707. Please, Boris, wake up.
We didn't join Europe to be swallowed up in some bureaucratic conglomerate where it's Euro this and Euro that and forget about being British. We're British and we're proud of it. Proud of our traditions, proud of our national character.
There we go. This is a time of the year, James, whenever, we're meant to be celebrating. We're meant to be celebrating the fact that we've just had Christmas. We've had Christmas with our family. And we're looking forward to the point in the new year where we're going to turn over a new leaf. We're going to contemplate what it is that we're going to be doing. And here we are sitting on the cusp of the breakup of the United Kingdom, which is a huge thing. And I talk about the people in Northern Ireland here, and I'd like for you to give me your opinion from an Englishman's perspective. But the people of Northern Ireland, I mean, they say that Northern Ireland is the most British place in the whole of the United Kingdom, the most patriotically proud British place in the whole of the United Kingdom. I mean, for over the years, one of the strap lines was that their only crime is loyalty. I mean, they were for the crown, they were for the United Kingdom, they were for Britishness. They were, they were patriotically proud to be that way. And here we have today in December of 2020, and we're just a few days away of, some people say being put on the window ledge of the Union. Well, I say that it's I think we're halfway across the plank and we're about to be kicked off. And we can level those charges right now at the Conservatives. I mean, what Boris Johnson done, and we all wanted to believe in Boris. We all wanted to believe that Boris would be a good Prime Minister and he would deliver really what he was saying that he would deliver. He was standing at the DUP conference just a few years ago, and he was saying that no unionist, no Conservative or no man that says that he's a unionist could ever contemplate what it is that they have contemplated within the past few days. And also they've shafted the fishermen. They didn't deliver the fishing rights for the British fishermen, and that's right around the United Kingdom. So here we are. We have a globalist in charge of the United Kingdom right now. And I'm not going to put any gloss on it because as far as I see it, that's what's happening. All the evidence is pointing to that. And the unfortunate fact is is that we have people within our own political parties, the DUP, the mainstream parties, the UUP from Northern Ireland, you know, the SNP, and other people like Plaid Cymru. And again, I'm going to ask you to speak from an Englishman's perspective, but we have the leaders of these mainstream parties, and they aren't for the people. They don't represent the people. They don't represent what it means to be British. They don't represent what it means to be a unionist. They don't represent the continuation of the United Kingdom. They don't represent Brexit in the way that it was envisaged, in the way that it was described by David Cameron. David Cameron says that we would be leaving the EU. If people voted to leave the EU, if they voted to leave, we would be leaving. No negotiation, no renegotiation. And here I am, James, and here are many people in Northern Ireland today. Here we are as second-class unionists, as second-class British citizens, where our vote doesn't register the same way as it does right across the United Kingdom. And what a horrible position to be in at this time of the year, when it's meant to be peace and goodwill to all men. But look, I'm not a defeatist. I'm not a defeatist, and I know that there's many people in our country right now that have more fight in them, in their little fingers, than these politicians would have in all of their being, in all of their political party machines. And you know something? These things actually only serve to make us get up with our backsides and make us redouble our efforts in order to turn things around. So it's back to the people here in Northern Ireland, and it's up to us to take this fight, and to take this fight from beyond the gate and to bring it back to where it should have been, because it's not over. It's not over by a long shot, and this you will see in 2021. And I've been speaking to people. We've got some strategy put in place, and we'll be implementing it. And no thanks to our DUP, no thanks to the Boris Johnsons of this world, no thanks to Michael Goves and anybody else that was negotiating in that Brexit process, but no thanks to those people. Here we are being handed hook, line and sinker to globalisation, and not one person in the United Kingdom voted for this. Over to you, James.
Well, you're right on that last point. Not one person voted for this, and Jim McAllister in the very first clip you showed really said that very well. Ben Habib's again highlighted some very yet another example of where one thing is said one day, and then in the back rooms of some office, smoke-free office in Europe, something else is agreed, and then it's leaked out secondhand through the likes of Michael Gove. But I think we could be in danger of getting a little bit over upset, thinking that, hang on, are we in a worse position now? Now, I appreciate people in England will be operating, well, if you're English and you've got a business partner in Northern Ireland and you want to go, you're going to be impacted by this kind of, by these hurdles, these deliberate obstacles that are being put in the way of people in the United Kingdom going about their lawful business within the United Kingdom, and that's what this is all about. But and Ben Habib, he's right. The Tories, they're just not. Forget, they are not a unionist party. They are managing Britain's transfer into the global, and they had to do a bit of a sit on both sides of the fence job for a while, and they will continue to do that. But ultimately, their agenda is not a strong United Kingdom moving forward as an independent country. That's not how they visualize the future. So there are obviously negative things that come, but do remember there are positive things that are going to be coming. Large parts of our union, and I don't like to have to be dragged into talking about the issue in this way, because I don't want my brothers and sisters in Northern Ireland to be taking it the wrong way. You're my countrymen and women, and we're being shafted. However, where we are, hopefully in 2 days' time, is going to be better than where we are today, which is going to be better than where we were 5 years ago. But the battlefield is becoming more obvious. Now, one thing about the Unionists in Northern Ireland that I would say you need a wake-up call. You're part of a union. You're not an island within a union. And the politics of Northern Ireland you have to come together with your Unionist friends in Scotland, Wales, and England as one politically, in some form or another. Because if you think you can beat the Unionist drum, and I don't mean that if you think you can do it alone in Northern Ireland and not find fellowship with English, Welsh, and Scottish actively political people, then the divide and rule politics is working. So I think we need to take stock. We're in a situation here where MPs have voted on something none of them have read. They've certainly not distributed that to their electorate. The electorate hasn't consumed the contents of this agreement.
We seem to have lost
Speaking of this document, things will be... Sorry, did you lose me there, John?
Sorry, I lost you there for a bit, but go ahead, James, you're back.
So things will be cropping up over the weeks to come. So we do need to take stock. We need to be clear. I mean, for instance, let's take a bit of recourse from the Lawyers for Britain, which is a group of lawyers who've always looked intensively at the output of all the documentation. Now, Lawyers for Britain, and their chairperson is William Cash, Bill Cash MP, who many of you will be familiar with. He's a Conservative MP, yes, okay. But bless him, he's a staunch unionist, loves the United Kingdom, and has probably put a bigger shift in than anybody in the political realm to get to where we are today. Now, their organisation has done a very, very quick, and this will no doubt be updated and amended in the days to come. But on the guts of it are good news for our political freedoms moving forward. And the future is not written. The future is for us to write. Now, within the EU, we couldn't write a future. It may be the case that we can start to write that new future now, but that new future is already being described and written by the incumbents, and their Labour and their Tory, their Lib Dem, their climate warriors, and they're in the councils, they're in the schools, they're in the political parties, and sensible people need to. The way in is through the ballot box at local level, starting at local level, and reinforcing what is important to us: our culture, our heritage, our United Kingdom, our democracy, our common law, our Bill of Rights, which we really need to put down in writing. There's so many rights that are lost in different documents gone by. But we need to take a positive look, I think, see what the new playing field is in the light of leaving the EU, because on paper we're out of the EU next week. Let's see what little hooks have been left in there to try and drag us back in. But one thing, for instance, the agreement that's been agreed, 5.5 years, they say, for fish. Well, if we had politicians that had the instruction of the people to get out of this agreement because on reflection it's not very good, the agreement actually does give either party ability to cancel the agreement at 12 months' notice. So I would say take a look at the Lawyers for Britain very short 4-page document and take heart. Not all is lost, but be aware of the game we're in. The Brino, maybe not Brexit. We're leaving the EU. They've still got the hooks in us through our political parties, the Conservative Party, the Labour Party, and that's where our focus needs to come on getting decent people, independent-minded people, and people who believe in the United Kingdom elected into office throughout the land.
Yeah, it's interesting there you mentioned the fishermen, and you mentioned that down the line in 5 years' time, there's the ability within that deal reassess things. But effectively, what is that? That's kicking the can down the road, is the truth of the matter. And on the other point here, Northern Ireland, we also have a situation under the protocol where it can be looked at after 4 years. But the truth of the matter is that our Northern Ireland Assembly is literally filled with a combination of minorities who become the majority, and they vote against the majority and they have their way. So in 4 years' time, we can be sure that we'll be voted back into the EU again. Now, Arlene Foster says, she's beating that drum, and she's saying, well, we'll have the chance to vote ourselves back out again in 4 years. Arlene Foster, who do you think you're kidding? Who do you think you're kidding to the DUP hierarchy? But as I say, ordinary people, we need to not take the defeatist attitude, and we need to understand, although this is a horrible day for the people of Northern Ireland, although this is a horrible few days that is about to come, and on the 1st of January next year, just in a few days' time, effectively we'll have been separated from the rest of the United Kingdom. And this just didn't start recently, James. I'm going to take you back, and I'm going to mention a few things, and I've mentioned them before on some of the streams, and I've actually I've talked about this, I've written about this for a very, very long time, and I know it chapter and verse. And in 1985, again, I'll say that I don't believe that Margaret Thatcher realised what she was doing whenever she signed the Anglo-Irish Agreement. And 250,000 plus people, they attended the Belfast City Hall to protest against the Anglo-Irish Agreement. But here we have it in December of 2020. There's not one of our political leaders that are out shouting about this. Yes, we did hear Sammy Wilson today in the Parliament, and we heard some of the DUP MPs shouting about this, and we've seen a few statements from the likes of the DUP. But where's the PUP? Where's the UUP? Where's our community leaders? Where's the Orange Order? There's nobody out shouting about this here, and that's unfortunate, because it makes people think. There was a document just a few days ago that we've noticed from a Sinn Féin QUB crowd, Queen's University Belfast, that sort of seemingly came from, and they're already planning what they're going to be doing in January. And what it is that we need to do is we need to be planning on exactly what we're going to be doing, and I know that a few of us actually are. So again, I'm going to say one thing, and I'm aiming this at our politicians here in Northern Ireland. And I made a commitment probably about 6 months ago to not the DUP, to not tear the DUP down. And I was done with knocking the DUP, and I was going to talk about other things, and I was going to talk about positiveness, and I was going to try to move on and do the right thing, and to try to build a consensus within people and move on a different track completely. But the DUP don't give you any room to stop shouting, because they continue to do the wrong thing. And as I say, just last week, Arlene Foster was in Armagh with Michelle O'Neill and Simon Coveney, putting in place the mechanisms by which this would unfold in a few days' time. So here we have a unionist leader, whilst what she's saying in the public is she's saying that we're against this. But as Jim Allister said in that video, in the house in the House in the Hill in Stormont, they're implementing every single jot and tittle of this here, and that's because that's what they want to do, and they're not telling the electorate the truth. So as for me, I've no truck with the DUP. I've no truck with the UUP, the mainstream political parties who have used and abused, and then dispense with the electorate in Northern Ireland whenever they don't matter. We're only good for a vote, and whenever those people get our vote, this is what people need to realize, is that they will do whatever they want. And sadly, what they will have done to a lot of people in Northern Ireland, and make no mistake about this, they will have caused the hugest disconnect that Northern Ireland will ever have seen. And it's down to us, the people. It's down to us to get out and about and to ensure that disconnect doesn't happen, and to provide another vehicle whereby people can actually place their votes and people can stand together. So I'm looking forward to the start of the year, to the 1st of January, whenever that we've crossed the gate. And something, whenever you're behind the 8 ball, sometimes you fight better, James. And that's the positive spin that I'm going to put on it. We've everything to fight for now, and that's what we'll be doing. And you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, with their brothers and sisters right around the United Kingdom, with the true unionists, with the true British unionist people, and let's not forget about it. Is there not? Let's not make any mistake. Those people also in England, in Scotland, and in Wales are being hammered, absolutely hammered by this globalization, by the fact that the media is against them, by the fact that the media is misrepresenting them, they're mislabeling them, they're slanderous in the way that they label these people, and not just here. They're doing that also in Ireland. They're doing that all across the Western world. And isn't it time that we reached out and we found the people that are being they're being battered in the same way that we are, and isn't it time that we forged alliances with those people and we stood together and we took the fight in a proper way? You know, America, you mentioned it earlier on, in 2016 we had the 23rd of June in 2016 where we got the Brexit. Well, so we certainly won the Brexit vote. The Brexit vote went our way, and you know, nationality you know, should have been literally you know, highlighted and copper fastened and delivered upon. But you see, these globalists have other things in mind. These globalists want to destroy your nationality. And that's no matter why you're in England, you're an English nationalist. You know, I mean, look what they're doing with the flags in England. They won't let you fly the flags. Look what they're doing in Wales when you talk to, you know, some of the friends that we have there. Look what they're doing on the people in Scotland and here in Northern Ireland. Look, we're no different. We are really no different. But, you know, Northern Ireland is in a very, very strong position. Do you know why? Because there are so many community groups. There are so many community organisations. There are, you know, I'm talking about like the Orange Order, the Marching Band Fraternity, and there's a lot of mechanisms by which people can come together, people can stand together, and people can stand strong whenever they stand together. But I would like to hear a wee bit more from the likes of the Orange Order. You know, they're very, you know, their silence is deafening right now. And I would just like to see at least even a statement, you know, from them to say that, you know, that this is not for us, and we will be fighting tirelessly to ensure that Northern Ireland's place within the United Kingdom is taken back to where that it should have been. It's just unfortunate where we end up. So, James, we're coming up to, I guess, the close, and I would like to maybe play another couple of videos. So, just over to you, and if you could possibly keep it to about 5 minutes and tell people why it is that people should be voting for the 5-star DD party, the 5-star Direct Democracy Party. So over to you, have a rant there and give everyone your credentials and tell them why they should vote for 5DD, and also what 5DD can do for people right around the United Kingdom. Over to you, James.
Well, firstly, 5DD, the 5-star Direct Democracy Party, we are more of an anti-party in that we don't have whip. We believe that direct democracy is the way that we can solve the problems that we're alluding to, that we've talked about tonight. And I did want to come back to this issue about what can people, the unionists do, what can the Orange Order do? I think what we can say is that we are the United Kingdom. That is what we are. And whilst the politicians play their games and you know, play with our money, with our emotions, and interfere with our freedoms, we've got to remember we're a United Kingdom. We have a constitution. We've moved forward. We've moved from being part of an EU to the vast majority of our United Kingdom moving out. But we need now to tackle the structural problem, and that is the political parties. And 5-star Direct Democracy Party are people like me who commit to actively representing their constituents and nothing more, protecting their rights. I don't want to impose ideology. I don't want to impose in fact, that is what I want to stop, the globalism. We want to merely assert what we are, a United Kingdom, that we're people who need limited government and who need people who will represent them with honesty and integrity under a constitution and a Bill of Rights. So what we're really interested in is for people who want to take responsibility for doing that in their local communities to say, I want to do that. I want to take responsibility away from these people who are abusing it and use that responsibility to implement the wishes of the people. We've seen how broken our politics is. We can see the wedges that are being created now for the arguments of tomorrow, but the positive way we can engage, and we are merely a vehicle for that. So 5-star direct democracy, I would love for somebody better than me in my locale to come and do the job in my locale, to administer government without imposing an ideology. But I'll do it. I'm happy to put my hand up and do it if I have to. We're looking for other people who are willing to put their hands up locally and say, leave it to me. There's no party whip. We do have a constitution. We ask you to submit to the authority of the people through direct democracy. And that's what we're there for. We recognise that, as we see in the United States, as we see in France, the traditional political parties are putting off voters, and that's because they don't represent them. We need that unifying movement in the United Kingdom, whatever that unifying movement will be, and we will work with anybody who wants to pursue that. But we know that a movement needs an overall brand. If that becomes us, great, because it will be coming from the people. In the United States, they've had a different glitch to the system in Donald Trump. But one thing that does resonate when I've listened to Donald Trump is because he gets quite like Brexiteers got in the run up to the referendum, and afterwards we're vilified for what? For wanting our rights and freedoms to want to live under laws that we ourselves control and determine. That's why we're vilified. It's shocking. In the United States, Donald Trump is vilified and he's vilified, but as he puts it, they're not vilifying me. It's you that they don't want to have control, and they don't like me because I'm working for you. And there's a truth for that. We need a movement in this country. 5-star direct democracy party, will we be it? I don't know. We're there for people to come and work with. If you want to stand and do what needs to be done, replace that local Labour councillor, replace that local Conservative councillors who's not doing the job, who's just being a nodding through all this stuff that's coming from above and saying, well, it's all for the best. No, we need to be a little bit more disciplined. Come and join us at 5-star direct democracy, 5dd.uk. We are on the website, and see what we're all about.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I'm just going to pop a picture up here, James, and this is something that I would like you to comment on. In fact, you may have been on our show before and commented on this very, very picture. But I'll just pop the picture up. I'll speak through it, and I would like you to give a comment for yourself whenever it's finished. And also to the live chat. I mean, we're coming up to the close of our last show for 2020, and we'll be back again on Monday, Monday of next week in 2021. Having been separated from the rest of the UK, having been designated second-class unionists, second-class British citizens, and that's what Boris Johnson has done, and that's what our own party political machines are facilitating. Whilst they talk a good fight, as I said before, they're doing something completely different in the background, and there's reasons why they're doing it, and we will show this and we will unfold this over the coming weeks and months. And I'm sure right now that these political parties, they see us as enemies, because we are probably the biggest thorn that's going to be in their side in 2021. But what are we demanding? All we're demanding is that they serve and protect the people, that they do what they were put in place to do, that they deliver on the reasons why that we voted them into office. And gone is the days when spin, swindle, fudge and lies should be passing for politics. The people of Northern Ireland, the people of England, the people of Wales and the people of Scotland, they deserve a lot better on what they're getting right now. So we'd like just to pop this picture up, James. I would like for you to make a comment on it. I'll narrate through it here for a second, and then we'll come back and we'll wish everybody a happy Christmas and a Merry New Year, and we'll say our piece. We'll play a video. We have a special video lined up for the end here, so we'll have, and it's something that I want everybody to watch, and it's something with huge significance. And well, sure, we'll get to that in a second, but popping up this picture. Okay, so if the foundation be destroyed, what can we do, James? What can we do if the foundation is going to be destroyed?
I think you're alluding to a great reset, are you?
I'll pop it up again, James. Absolutely. And, in reality, this is exactly what's happening behind the scenes. And this is what we want to talk about more and more in 2021. And, some of the mainstream would say that, that anyone who wants to talk about this is a conspiracy theorist. But the reality is that this is on the IMF website. It's on the World Economic Forum. There's people openly talking about it. There are governments right now. There are government leaders of governments using these very words. Prince Charles would be subscribing to this type of thing. And I can tell you, people, it's not going to be humanity. It's not going to be, it's not going to be community as we have currently known it. But anyway, if the foundation be destroyed, and I believe that the foundation will be destroyed, and look at Matt Hancock, he's handing over the keys there of the United Kingdom to these globalists in order that they can destroy the United Kingdom. And this is what's happening right before our very eyes. And our mainstream politicians, they're facilitating it. So, James, over to you. I would like you to comment on what you just see there.
The conspiracy theories is an easy label to chuck. I mean, you've shown an image. You've shown Matt Hancock, who's the Secretary of State for Health. I'm sure everybody knows that. It's a shame that we do know who the Secretary of State for Health is. It should be a quiet administrative role that, if everything's going along, you'd never even know who they were in a good government. But we do know who he is. The keys to the car, freedom, the Great Reset. It's such a huge topic. It brings in all aspects of many aspects of what we're seeing going on, without getting into the issue of the climate change, for instance, and how we need to come together as a world to solve climate change. We need to come together as a world to solve racism. We need to come together as a world to solve new viruses that might come every now and again. And we need to listen to experts who know what they're talking about. And there's a lot of things that are going on in the world. The Great Reset is almost, it's like a brand name, Build Back Better. And we can't cover it in 5 minutes, and it does need breaking down so much, because it incorporates the way we do business, what our money is, how we educate ourselves, what our freedom of movement is, how we access health, how we make decisions moving forward. And as I say, this again is to do with what future do we want for ourselves and our children, one in which we are slaves in a system and the experts tell us what we can do, where we can go, what we can eat, when we can't eat, whether we can show our faces in public, or whether we want to live in a future where we trust our neighbours and our schools and our children to learn, to become good civil individuals and progress society as our forefathers did in the 1700s, 1600s, 1800s. Pick your century until it started going very wrong as we got very lazy after the Second World War. Again, others will argue it went wrong in other aspects, but we are moving forward. Always remember, we live longer than our great grandparents did. When our children arrive, bless them, they've got a much better chance of survival. There are so many good things about the advancement, but we've got to not forget the foundations and remember what they are. And if I may say, John, restore a bit of common sense to the United Kingdom.
Yeah. James, once again, thank you for joining us. We're really at the end of another show. And as I say, it's the last show of 2020. And look, I hope, and I'm appealing to the people here on the live chat, I hope that you have enjoyed what it is that some of us, even in the background, some of the people on the live chat has actually worked tirelessly in order to provide And we'll continue to do that in 2021. And, it's more needed than ever before. And, just leave your comments if you think that myself, James, and all of the other folk that has joined the stream over the last while back. I believe that we're getting better. We're becoming more professional at doing this in the way that we're searching and seeking out the words of politicians, the way that we're holding politicians to account, the way that we're showing the reality, and the way that we're actually putting out a pattern of how things that are going. So I look forward to 2021. I look forward, not that I wanted to be behind the gate with the battle, but certainly I look forward, because I fight better when I'm behind the gate. And I look forward to the fight, because it is going to be a fight. It's going to be a battle a day. It's going to be an expose a day. It's going to be redoubling our efforts in order to ensure that these politicians get what they deserve, in terms of, if they want to waffle, if they want to spin, swindle, and put out fudge, well, we need to be there, ready, willing, and able to expose them along every step of the way. James, thanks very much again for coming along. Thanks to the live chat for coming along. And, James, if you would just like to wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, whatever it is that you want to do. And the minute you do that, I'm pressing the button on a video, and don't go anywhere. Stay behind the screen for a quick chat.
Yeah, have a positive 2021. Remember, David did beat Goliath, and the 300 Spartans were victorious. So fight on.
Yeah, and you've just prompted me to say something else there. When David faced Goliath, he didn't think that this monstrosity was too big. He thought, how can I miss this monstrosity? And that is the truth of the matter, because for each and every day that these globalists, this whole, this one world order, for each and every day that these people do things, and they do things which is absolutely bonkers, they do that on a regular basis. And all we need to be there waiting for them is to trip up, and we'll use whatever it is that they're saying, whatever it is that they're doing, to expose them and show to the people, and in a way that we win hearts and minds. So again, I would just like to play a video that many people on the screen will not have seen. And it was re-recorded by a man from Weston-super-Mare. And I have to say, he's done a grand job of it. And there's some footage here now. It's a lot to do with Northern Ireland. It's a lot to do with what our politicians have been doing. And, again, look, to the DUP, to the DUP hierarchy, what I would say is that, we've dealt with this in the past, and isn't it time we began a sensible, rational conversation on how that it is that we're going to get ourselves out of this mess that we're in right now, and how that it is that we're going to move forward. And I was promoting in 2020 a people-politician partnership. Well, it's never too late to do things in a way that people and politicians can actually work together. But you see, once trust is lost, well, it'll take a long while to build that trust back up again. So what we need actions, yeah? The words, we're finished with the words. And if the words are not coming out in the right way, well, sure, we're moving on in the way that we need to move on. James, thanks very much. Thanks again to the live chat. I would like for you to enjoy this song as it goes. And don't go anywhere, James.
broken land. Show breaks the love to keep us together. Open up your hearts, don't turn us away. Stand with us through this stormy weather. From where I stand, I see a broken land. Show breaks the love to keep us together. Open up your hearts, don't turn us away. Stand with us through this stormy weather. From where I stand, I see a broken land.
We didn't join Europe to be swallowed up in some bureaucratic conglomerate where it's Euro this and Euro that and forget about being British. We're British and we're proud of it. Proud of our traditions, proud of our national character,